Hello, this is National Chess Master Raw Rats at chess.com, and I'm covering a simultaneous giving by CM James Coleman of England, and I think he's playing about 10 boards. We'll try to count them as we go. I'm going to cover each game as it goes. Playing a time control of 45 and 30. That means you start with 45 minutes, and every move you get an increment of 30 seconds added. So essentially each side has approximately 75 minutes. No, I'm sorry, 65 minutes for their moves. You take the time plus the two-thirds of the increment, and if the game goes 40 moves, each side has 65 minutes. So this video could run a little over 2 hours, but that's okay. I've made long videos before. In this game here, White is disconnected, and he has 5 minutes to reconnect, so hopefully he gets back. Let's move on to the next one. Every time I try to analyze the game and he makes a move, one of the sides makes a move, it's going to mess up the game, and, well, nothing we can do about it. I'll grumble, but hopefully they fix that bug in version 3 when it comes out. So we see a Sicilian defense closed. I believe they call this the Grand Prix attack, and both sides are just developing their pieces, and it looks pretty level. Okay, so we'll come back to that and move on to the next one. He's playing white and black in his games. How did this one start? Let's go back to the beginning. Okay, a double king pawn, king's gambit, and he declines it with knight c6. Another way to decline the gambit is with bishop c5. White can't take on e5 because queen h5 check is a killer. And it could still transpose into, oh, look at this, very interesting. I love it. Okay, I have no idea on the theory of this. I've had a student with a game recently where both sides had played these moves, and this knight was here, and I couldn't figure it out. I didn't know the theory. So anyway, should lead to an exciting game. We'll come back. Let's see what happened here. He took this, probably the best, and now he kicks the knight, and the knight comes here. So now let's see. Is White threatening a check? He might be. So probably black has to play knight f6, and it looks like that's what he does. And we're waiting for a move. Now, let me move on to the next game. This is the third game now. This one's underway, and we'll try to figure out what happened. Go through the moves. See, they make a move, and look what happens. It's not your fault. You didn't know I was watching your game right now. Okay, we're Lopez. D3 is kind of a slower system. It should lead to equality, but black's going to equalize against anything that white throws against him. And both sides are developing their pieces. Well, thank you very much for moving. Okay. Possible black could play bishop g5, trying for this, but that's a long maneuver. Maybe black will try for this. Try to double up the white pawns on the king side and possibly even get a winning attack. But this pretty much stops it on both ends. c3. Black won't be able to get a knight into d4, and white can't get his knight to c6 and do it. So, you know, this game's even. h6, preventing the pin. I'm really frowning on these moves in my video series. You don't really need to prevent bishop g5 in this position, simply because white can't access d5 conveniently. Okay, especially with a knight. So, but you know, it does take a square away for the bishop, but I think white has a good strategy by putting the bishop here. And if black takes, now there's nothing making black take, white takes back here, and white's got these wonderful center pawns. I mean, they're doubled. Imagine a pawn here. They're controlling all kinds of squares. And thanks for moving. Anyway, they're controlling all these squares, and then the objective, that's why you want the rook on f1. You want to get the knight to h4. But before you can do that, you have to watch out for a tactic. The tactic, if knight, like in this position, knight, come on, go away, pop up. Knight h4, the tactic being knight takes e4. And suddenly black is on a pawn. I fell into that, learned it the hard way when I was getting my first rating of 1465 against a high 1700 player. He just killed me. Anyway, the way to do it is to imagine this rook on e1 or f1 where it belongs. You're bringing the queen to e1 first. Now you can play this move. And then the knight comes into f5, and white has potential attacking chances. But the moment this, let's back up a couple moves. The moment this bishop comes to e3, the correct choice is to drop the bishop back to b6. I guess in this case, black might even leave it there, just castle. If white takes on c5, it's true black has double pawns, but he has some pressure on d3. So that's a mistake to take down on e3. But down at the lower rating level, you'd be surprised what these players will do. So it's a good way to get some good attacks in double king pawn openings. The fun thing about it is you can do it with white or black. See, in this position, black could, instead of h6, here's a possibility, black could play bishop e6, and if white takes, there's nothing making him take, but if he takes, you take back with the pawn, castle, bring the queen to e8, and this knight goes over to h5, and you bring it into f4. How about that, huh? Okay, so I said what I want to say about that. So, rook e1's playable. It just goes a little bit against what I would do, and I still think bishop e6 is a good move. But he opts to castle, and now he plays it. Good. Okay, so now white declines. It might have been better to leave this bishop here. Why do you say that? Well, it doesn't really have a future on c2. Let's play this knight to f1. Why? Well, it opens up a diagonal for this bishop. Number two, it brings this knight to the king side where he can maybe come in and help out. And should black take, and there's nothing making black take, white has the option of either taking with the pawn and having some pressure on the open file, or getting the queen developed so that the rooks can get connected a little quicker. Anyway, the bishop c2 is fine, and now this is an interesting move. Does black gambit a pawn here? See, e5 is going to be hanging here in a second. Pawn takes, knight takes. Now, similar to a Marshall in a lot of respects. But we'll come back. We'll see what happens on that one. I can't speculate exactly what's going to happen. So let's see. I was trying to count the games as I go. I'll look back and see. Oh, good. He made it to this game. And we have a double king pawn game ensuing. So let's see. The fourth game was this one. Now game 5 against Incredible Tactic. Let's bring it back. Okay. We have I guess we have a perk defense on our hands. Yep, perk defense, classical approach. Karpov favored this. Looks like white's going to plan to set up a battery on the c1 h6 diagonal, castle long, and try to attack the white king. Black should be okay if that happens. He should just develop. Yes, thank you for moving. So thank you for moving again. I'm here. Wait. Okay. So he's doing exactly what I thought he would do. And so white has reasonable attacking chances. Black needs to be thinking about the same thing. I think b6 was a little timid. Maybe what black should have played was a6 with the idea of playing b5 so you can get those pawns off and running. Because white's going to run a pawn storm here. There's no question in my mind he's going to run a pawn storm. Black needs to do the same. And although this will get his pieces developed, eventually that pawn is going to have to come up here and he'll have lost the tempo. So I think that was the 5th game. Let's look at the 6th game and see what's happening here. Okay. Sicilian defense. We've got the Grand Prix attack again. I guess that's what they call it. Closed Sicilian. And not much is happening. That was against Guilloin. Okay, next game. Oh, wow, we're really making progress here. How many moves have they played? Just 14. Okay, let's... the first thing I'm saying, let's look... I haven't talked about it yet, but I will. I'll talk about it now. Look at the time on the clock. Black has gained time, okay? Now, this can happen in a book opening. If you know the book, if you play 10 moves, you can pick up 4 or 5 minutes really quickly because of the increment. But you don't want to keep that pace up. You want to take your time. Ideally, I said earlier, you have an e-time of 65 minutes. I've mentioned this before. It's worth mentioning again. 40 moves is the magic number. Now, it's kind of for how many moves a game should last. Now, it's kind of missing the importance of this in internet chess. Let me give you a little background on it. In the old days when they played a world championship match, all FIDE rate events, They played a time control of 40 moves in 2.5 hours and then 16 moves per hour. But there was one big difference. After 5 hours of play, one side sealed a move. In other words, they didn't play the move on the board. They played the move, wrote it on their score sheet. They put the score sheet in an envelope, and then the players went home. And they would usually resume the next day. And then if you played in a FIDE tournament, you usually had a second with you, someone called a second, be another talented player. Could be, if you're a grandmaster, you probably had a grandmaster. Like, for instance, when Bobby Fischer won the world championship in 1972, his second was Grandmaster William Lombardi. And when he was training for the candidates matches, I believe his second was Grandmaster Larry Evans. And, basically this allows the player playing the game to get some rest, and the second stays up all night and solves all the problems of the position, figures out what's happening, how to continue. And sometimes a game is resigned if they determine that they're going to lose. They resign without adjournment, and it's during the adjournment that many games are saved. Larry Evans has a very interesting book. It's written in English descriptive book notation called The Fireside Book of Chess. Got a bunch of chess stories and chess games and stuff. I think it's that book. He's got a chapter, Burning the Midnight Oil, which is exactly this, looking at adjournments. Adjournments were a big part of chess in the old days. When Bobby Fischer played Mikhail Botvinnik, their one game in the Olympiad back in, I think, 62, Fischer prepared a line that Botvinnik had played against Vasily Smyslov in the World Championships matches, and Fischer had found an improvement for black and was able to play it on the board, and Bobby achieved a winning position. But he kind of let it slip, and come adjournment time, Fischer still had the advantage with the winning chances, but Botvinnik's team found a resource that was able to pull the draw out. And but anyway, adjournments are pretty much a thing of the past now. Why? Well, because you can analyze a position with table bases or with a chess engine. You can pretty much exhaust things. So and really determine the positions. They kind of got rid of them. They like to get the games over in one sitting. So they play they don't have adjournments anymore for a lot of these reasons, to let the players decide the outcome and not have the Silicon Beasts come in and solve it. Okay, so there's my little story on time control. Well, it's actually not quite done yet, but the 40 moves was long been determined to be the time that a game will last. And give you an example, where if you to visit a weekend tournament, if you've never been to one, they're a lot of fun to go watch. If you live in a major area, major metropolitan area, you'll see a lot of strong grandmasters. But say the round starts at 10 a.m. and let's just say the time control is 40 moves in 2 hours, okay, and then a sudden death, say, in an hour. Okay, at 2 o'clock, if you were to just take a random glance around the room at 2 o'clock, you're going to find a lot of games are over. I'm not sure the percentage. Maybe 2/3 of them are actually over, but it'll vary. In the higher the section, the more games are going to be going. And the games that are finishing are ones that, well, sometimes you get the so-called grandmaster draw. The players reach a position that theory says you can't do much, and they conserve their energy, make peace, and go home, okay, and rest up for the next round. But for the most part, by move 40, the majority of your games, the outcome is usually likely is what's going to happen. Doesn't mean if you're winning a game you will win it. I just say likely is the key word here. There will still be some games that require technique to win in the end game, or there'll still be games that are dead even that they're trying to find some way to get an advantage from. But as the next 2 hours progresses, depending on how long the sudden death is, these remaining games are going to start dropping like flies. And it's very, very rare that one game just keeps going and delays the next round. But 40 is your magic number. So how do we apply that to this game? Now, since I've been talking, it looks like how do you pronounce that? Wu23 he had 46 or 47 minutes. He's been taking some time now, and that's good. Now maybe he's taking his time. But if you're playing at a time control like this, you probably want to have a bonus of 5 minutes left on your clock at move 40, and then count then your 30-minute increments. So basically, you have an hour for 40 moves. Now, how do I determine that? 40 moves plus 2/3 the increment. I'm sorry, 45 minutes plus 2/3 the increment is 20. So you play 40 moves, you're going to get an extra 20 minutes on your clock. You're getting an hour and 5 minutes. So if you're saving 5 minutes bank, you spend an hour on 40 moves. How much time is that per move? Well, do the math. It's not hard. What is it? 60 divided by 40? What's that? A minute and a half a move. Somehow my math skills are failing me. But you get the basic idea. You just do the math and figure out how much time you should spend on the move. Now that doesn't mean you take a minute and a half every single move. No, it doesn't at all. It means sometimes your opponent makes a capture or a check, and after a quick glance at the board to make sure that you don't have a clever Zwischenzug or something, you can play the move in seconds, and that gains you some time. Or other forcing moves. So you can kind of direct your strategy. If your opponent's in time trouble, don't give him easy moves. Decline exchanges. Make him consume clock time. But anyway, if after move 40, if you have 5 minutes on your clock in a 30-second increment, you should be good to go to finish the game. So that's how you do it. Okay. Now we haven't looked at this game yet, so let's run through and see how much of it was book. Okay. Well, that's book. We have Scotch game. This is pretty drawish. Not much is happening here. And the game is, I'm not sure when book is left here, but you can see neither side is really getting much anywhere. Attacks the queen, saves it. Now here's a question. Does this win the bishop? He doesn't play g5. I'm wondering, what about g5 here? What am I missing? No, you're going to have... No, let's see. g5 traps the bishop, but what can white do? h3 fails because... Well, no, it doesn't really fail. Pawn takes... Now this bishop is pinned, but the queen's under attack. I don't know, maybe this wins a piece. I must be missing something. Let's back it up slightly. g5. He didn't play it, and he spent about 5 minutes on the move. So, let's see, why doesn't he play g5? Didn't want to weaken his king position? I don't see where... Let's see. Bishop takes, pawn takes, h3. Attacks the bishop. The bishop moves, queen takes, check. You get 2 pawns for it and some potential attacking chances. I don't know. It's interesting. Anyway, bishop d7, knight d4, and the game looks pretty even. Let's move on to the next game. Wow, this one's really moved. We're almost in an end game. You trade off one more piece and it's an ending. But let's see. Black's down the exchange. Does he have compensation? Okay, we have a double king pawn. Scotch again. Scotch gambit. Usually d5 is, I think, the main line. Then bishop b5 is the main line. I don't know this line. Doesn't mean it's any good. Now somebody's sending me a Skype. Why do you have to send me a Skype? Okay, let's see. Okay. Anyway. So let's back this up to see how we got to this position. Not quite there yet. Let's see. Bishop e6. No, wasn't quite there. See, the knight went to g4. I just told this guy, don't bother me, I'm making a live video, and he keeps sending me messages. Okay, so now you can take the pawn, but you might run into a problem on the file. So he doesn't take the pawn. I mean the e-file, potential pins. Bishop e7 is logical. Now black is going to return his pawn at his under his conditions. Well, actually, black's still a pawn ahead. Okay, Scott's Gambit. Pin, break the pin, take. Now black's pawn structure is a little loose. You know, these pawns aren't exactly ideally posted. White's got some squares, e4, and well, I don't know if they moved or if I just hit the board wrong. White's got some squares that black can't contest. I'm talking about e4 and e5, and I'm trying to color them in, and it won't do it. Oh, I wish this would work better. Sometimes you have to sit there and click it 20 times to make it work. Maybe it won't do it in a live game. Anyway, I can still draw my arrows. And now White wins his pawn back, and he's threatening to win the queen. And by rook takes e6. So maybe Black's strategy hasn't worked all that well, although he's slightly ahead of development. This, at least his pieces go. This piece isn't out, but Black isn't castled yet. He takes care of that with a pin, and now White gains a tempo with a. Thanks for moving. See, I said I would gripe when this stuff happens. See, they're still moving, or maybe they're not. Knight takes. He gains a tempo on the queen, so the queen comes down here to h4, threatening both h2 and f2. And White grabs the rook and says, "Show me what you got." Well, this is interesting. You have two pawns to pick, h2 and f2. He picked f2. What about h2? Some of these things can run into theoretically lost games for White in a hurry. Check forces king up. Check king up to e2. You can grab g2. You're threatening f2 all over again. Do you want to stop and take this knight first? Well, that'll let White develop his queen, maybe to f3. So he went to f2. Now you move the queen. You're threatening a fork. So looks like now you can take on h2, and the king gets in big danger here. I think. Yeah, this is definitely the right way. So I don't think king g1 was the right move. White needs to give back the exchange. Rook f1. No, wait. You've got a problem on h2. There's a mate threat there. Duh. Okay, so White strategy isn't working. It looks like the Cabinet Master is going to win his game. Okay, we'll come back, see how that works out. I still haven't started all the games yet. Now, I guess he has 10 games. I didn't count them. I lost count. When I go back to the start, I'll try to count them as I go back. But basically, by playing 10 games, which he probably is, he's playing 4.5. A time control 4.5 with a 3-second increment. But sometimes, when you're giving the simul, you can get everybody on the move. You can catch up and let their clocks tick. So it's not quite that bad. But one way to beat a simul giver when he's playing lots of boards is play fast. It'll tend to put him in time trouble quicker. But you run a risk that you make a blunder when you're moving quick. So we're in the Lopez. Now you're preparing the Marshall counter a gambit. And he allows it. One way to avoid the Marshall attack is to play a4. They call that the anti-Marshall. You got to have a video in my memberchess.com games where Black ran into the anti-Marshall and still a few moves later managed to get d5 and play a variation on Marshall. It was quite fascinating. The player's name was Navatsam, and the topic is in the forums in the video lessons group. You're welcome to look it up, and it's one of the first games in there. There's a video on it. Anyway, comes d5 the Marshall, and Black gives up a pawn, but he gets an attack. Now the old move is knight f6. That's what Marshall first played against Capablanca when he introduced this opening. But the modern theory prefers c6, but knight f6 could catch a White napping. And now here comes Black's attack, queen h4. H3 is a horrible blunder because of bishop takes h3. And we're in theory. I don't know when theory is going to end, but this looks pretty much straight out of the book. And, he's moved and messed me up. Still not there. Let's see. Okay, just gotta go forward. Queen h3, bishop g4, queen d3. I think we're still in theory. It looks very theoretical. I know there's some lines when white takes this knight off. Now the knight's going back here playing defense. Doesn't really have a future there because H3 or H2, G3 and are covered, and so is E3. He can't move there, but he can defend them. But who wants to be defending? I heard a tick, which sounds like a draw for, but I'm not sure what game. We'll find out soon enough. Okay, so attacks the queen. White's staying his pawn ahead and got his pieces over to help the king. Looks like white's holding his own. 24 moves, but look at black's clock. We forgive him because a lot of this was theory, but still, this is the time when black needs to dig in and start thinking. And I don't know when book ended, but let's move on to the next game. Okay, we have the Benoni defense. It's pretty much following theory here. Her white stopping b5. Usually white opts to get e4 in, but he didn't in this case. That's a little different system. Guess he's going to play e4 later, but it does come at a loss of tempo. Here white's playing to preserve his dark squared bishop. Oh, that's interesting. Gives himself a weakness here, but it's often something white will do in the Benoni, so it's okay. Yeah, see, here comes e4. Now f5 is a common break that black will do, but this busts up the black kingside pawns. But e5 is a square black likes to use in the Benoni. He doesn't have it here. And now pressure on that pawn. But black has some control on e4, although white's keeping black out of there with his heavy artillery. Heavy show a concentration of forces against that square. Anyways, it looks about even. Let's see where their games are going. I heard a result. That's taking me back to the start on my scroll menu here. Let's see. We just looked at Korpen. We're still on Korpen's game, and it's still moving. No, that's not. No, this is a new one. Okay, well, I was looking at. I didn't click on that one. I just looked at Skakista Supremo. I don't know what happened. Maybe that's his last game. Okay, let's back him up. I'm going to do a little advertising here in the chat. Okay, let's back them up. I'm going to copy pasting something in every game just to join the group, play the Masters, see my videos, get better at chess. Okay, I'll count the games as we go back. I'm not making any comments. I'm just... Okay, somebody offered a draw. It was declined. I did say there was a draw offer. Okay, let's see. How many games is that? That's 2. So, or 3. Here's 4. This is against Wu. 23. This is 5. I'm losing count already. I'll count them again. Oops. Didn't get that posted. No, it was against Wu. I'm just telling people to join the group, watch the videos, play more Masters, get better at chess. We'll have a lot of fun in this group. Very active group. Hard to find more active. And, between Dan Heisman's group and mine, we have it's no contest. We have the best coaching groups on chess.com because of all the activities we have. And they're all free. If you want it's private instruction, you're going to pay for that. You can do that in any group, but nobody tops what we have. My videos cover about every topic. Dan's written an article about every topic. If you have a question, ask Dan, and he'll answer you. Okay, I'll do the same. Okay, so I'm just advertising the group here. Somebody asked it's all free. I didn't take. All right. So let's get Boogalicious. Let's see. That game. Not commenting. I'm just trying to promote the group so we can grow. trying to share my chess knowledge with the world. And we're the third largest group on chess.com. We'll be up to number 2 in a month or two. Let's see. So how many games? Let me count the games, so I'll come back. Okay, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. I lost count again. Okay. They scroll by so fast. Okay, he's got 1, 2, 3, 4 with Dom's game. 5, 6. 6 is Guelon's game. 7, 8, 9, 10. He has 10 games. Good. Okay, 10 games. All right, let's go back to the beginning because we haven't looked at some of these games since they got started. This is we're going to go Solo 4C. It's already on that game. Wow, this one's really moved up. But look, he's taking his time. This is good. Okay, how many moves did he in? 12. Okay, this is an excellent job by White of time management. There, I'm trying to move this. We last looked at this when it was just right out of the opening. So they have the Gioco Piano. White chooses the slower line. I think they call this the pianissimo or something like that. Pianissimo. I don't know. Now Black is trying to get this in. So Bishop E3 is a good way to meet that. And here I talked about this earlier. Black doesn't want to take, and Coleman knows not to take. He knows. He castles, and here we have it. I mentioned this, maybe in this game, maybe another game, how you can just take back with the pawn. I think it was the one where the pawn went to C3, and you get this D file. You have control over D4. The double pawn isn't that bad to have. Uh-oh, that's a mistake because now knight D4 comes in, and White's in a little bit of a trouble here. Okay, Queen E3. Now Bishop takes is correct. Now Queen D7. This is thematic. If left to his own desires, Queen H3 is going to be real strong here, and that would threaten a mate in 2 that White can only defend by giving up his queen. So, wow, this one's almost over because I can see the next move, Rook C1. This does, you're stopping to guard a pawn, but look at that, Queen H3, and essentially it's game over. How do you guard H2? Now knight F3 is going to come and game's over. Period. Yep, see, now what does Black do? Or White do? He has to give up his queen. It's the only way to stop mate. I teach this to kids all the time, how to do this trick. Looks like one game ended. Or did another one start? No, this one's been going for a while. Okay, let me go back. I don't know why it's sending me to another game. I've heard that telltale click that tells me games are over. Okay, Korpin, I'm not sure where we left off here. We looked at some of this. I've looked at some of all the games. Let's just... Yeah, it was close to Sicilian. Or no, it was it started beginning. Thanks for moving. Okay, we have the Catalan, or Bogo Indian, I guess they call it, and or something somewhere along that line. Both sides are developing, and White's got a little more space. White's operating on 4 ranks. Black's operating on 3. Still, slight space advantage for White. Black has a weakness on D6, a weakness on B6. This pawn is wedged in rather nicely. I don't see a convenient way for Black to attack it. White's got the better position here. That's an interesting move. Gives White F5 if he wants. He chooses to go to C2. Now there's an outpost on D5, maybe. Might be occupied. He goes ahead and puts it in there. Now here, Black has given up the bishop pair, but White's got a lot of pawns on light squares. Thank you for moving. Where were we? Here we were. White's got a lot of pawns on light squares. This kind of diminishes the power of that bishop. If played correctly, Black might be able to hold this. strategically, but we'll just see. We'll just have to see here. Okay. Uh, Now c5 is under black's control. Let's see, he didn't play there directly with the knight came here first. And now white has some potential tactics with knight takes g7. Not just yet. I heard another tick of a game that ended. I don't know which one. It's switching me over to Zigworth's game. We're looking at let me see. Korpin had, yeah. Okay, now Zigworth. Where's that going? Okay, we ran through I don't remember Caro-Kann. Did it somehow miss this game? Maybe it started late or something. I don't know. The F3 line isn't supposed to be all that great for white, but it can catch an unprepared player by surprise. My friend FIDE Master Nfork, who has given simults with us before, he's pretty versed on opening theory, and he's talked about the F3 line of the Caro-Kann, and I've seen he's smashed some grandmasters with it in tournaments. But anyway, that's kind of beyond what I can do here. An unprepared player may not know what to do. Now here, white's given up small positional concession. He's temporarily down a pawn. And he has an isolated... Well, no, he's not down. He is down a pawn. He has 6. And he's got an isolated e-pawn. But black doesn't have any development right now. Now, knight f6 might not be the best. I don't know, e5, maybe not. But white's got a lead in development for his pawn. And, oh, he's offering another one. No, he's just offering to exchange. He's saying, let's develop another one of my pieces. Should black decline that? Well, he can decline it with bishop c5. No, he can't. Just pawn takes. Duh. Okay, it's probably wrong to try to hold on to it with c6. This just starts creating weaknesses in black's position. And if the board opens up, the black king could get exposed. So white's gambited a pawn for development. It's got close to full compensation because he's got 3 pieces developed in castle. Black has 2 pieces developed, and this bishop won't get out right away. So he's got the full compensation. Pawn count chess wise or tempo wise, but black develops with check. So this helps black catch up. Now they both have 3 pieces developed and have castled. So, it's close to even. Even, maybe white's okay because he has the development. Black's okay because he has the pawn. But developing this knight could be a problem. He breaks the pin, but if you move the knight, you're going to get double pawns. That's why this bishop often belongs back here on e7. Okay, and that's where we left off. That's with Zigworth. This game is still going. I heard 2 clicks that sounded like game over, but I didn't see any games over. Okay, Grand Prix Sicilian. Black plays the Botvinnik system of pawns. Now, this is a horrible move. I talked about already in this video. What does this do for black? It seriously weakens his position. It doesn't develop anything. G6 is now weaker. White wasn't... don't do this to me. I told you I would grouch when they move when I'm watching a game. White wasn't planning to put anything on G5. Okay? If you want to stop knight, maybe... Let's go the other way. Back arrow. Okay. If you think white's planning knight G5 to attack F7, you want to see a perfect way to stop it? Here. Bishop E7. Okay? You just take that knight. So what if white opens up the file? It's no big deal. Bishop takes, pawn takes, knight E7, and then you're ready to castle. And there's nothing white can do to crack black open. And I don't think white's going to play knight G5. White's not developed. Why does white want to move a piece a second time in the opening for a one-move threat? The answer is he doesn't. He wants to develop so he can use all his pieces. But people will panic and play these H6 moves, and they're just not good. Okay, so you want to stay away from these moves. Look at my correspondence team match playlist. Go to the news post, actually. It's in the video lesson group. Just click news, and there's a picture image that'll show about the match with Carpe Diem. It's got a picture of the 4 Beatles with their Let It Be album cover. Go there and just scroll down and read my comments. I even identify which videos I make that talk about these rook pawn moves. They're going to kill you, okay? They're not necessarily, no grandmaster recommends them. I've determined that they're an internet defense that people learned on their own don't read chess books because they haven't been exposed to chess in a real setting, more of a virtual setting online. Anyway, now here comes an example of why h6 was a bad move. g6 is now permanently weak. This diagonal is weak. There could be a check which will displace this king. And white finds a nice move. Black's going to have to undergo some pawn structure weakness. If knight takes, then white will just happily play knight takes, and on pawn takes, here comes queen h5 check, just what I was talking about. So black decides to play a pawn down, develops his knight, and white accepts the pawn. And, basically white's a pawn up and black has no compensation for it. Why does he have no compensation? Because he stopped and played h6. That's why. White's getting developed, and he's getting ready. Now, here I've been criticizing these moves, and we see this, but white's going to try to attack the black king. This is normal. White's going to prepare a b5 push at the right moment, okay? Or b4 push. And here it comes. Now, this is interesting. Move a knight 3 times to take a knight that moved once. And in process, develop the white queen. So you don't want to make exchanges to develop your opponent's pieces, which, look at the scope the white queen now has. It didn't have any scope, really, back on d1. It hadn't even developed. Now you've just developed it for white. Okay, Aaron Nimzovich, 101. Read My System. It's a great book. He'll talk about that. I talk about it in my videos. Don't make exchanges that develop or improve the position of your opponent's pieces. And here he declines. I can't take the pawn on b6. It was a pin. But white has 6 pawns, black has 5. And whose king looks a little more airy? It looks like the black king looks a little more in trouble here. So it's white's move. He has 16.5 minutes. Should be enough time to get back to this. So that's against Loza 2. We'll look at incredible tactic. What's happened here? Wow, we have 6 pawns. White's up a pawn. I don't remember how this one fared. Oh yeah, this is the perk defense where he was going to attack the king side. That's right. And I was saying that black needed to get his pawns up. Well, there he gets his pawns rolling. Here comes h5, just like I said. Or h4 with the idea of pushing those pawns. There it comes. Willing to sacrifice the exchange. And he can't take. If he takes, we get queen g5. Pawn takes h5, queen g5. Ouch. So, black takes here. Here comes the mate threat. Temple the queen. Grab a pawn. Now grabs the rook. And look what black has done to his pawn structure to stave off the mate. So, black really didn't get much chance to do anything here. Okay. Now he gets back the exchange. Here comes a check. Get the queens off. Black's holding on. He's got equal material. This bishop isn't developed. This is kind of a crummy pawn structure, but you got to like white simply because black has so many weak pawns. Thanks for moving. Let's back it up. Okay, so not sure how that rook get down there. Wow. Okay, let's see. We'll find out. Knight b5, attack the weak pawn. Occupy the 7th rank better than taking on a7, allowing rook a8 and rook a2 probably. Okay, fork. But there's a remedy to that because the knight's protected. Now white's up white's up a pawn now. He's won a pawn. Black's got a nice knight, but it won't stay nice forever. White can eventually kick it out with c3. And now bishop f1, I suppose. And that's c3, or he kicked it out, and he tries a trick. If pawn takes knight, he's just going to shove h2 and get a queen. So pawn pawn takes h3, knight takes f3, check. I still have to like white here, but black is making it interesting. Time-wise, good. Black has taken his time. So even if he loses, he can be very proud because he is taking his time. And Coleman's actually gained time on the clock. So let's see. I think I've heard the tick indicating 3 results are over, but I can't find any of the games. There he did get that pawn back. But it's still kind of grim for the defender. Okay, let's go on to Gueluan. Ooh, what do we got here? Okay. Let's see. We got a Grand Prix Sicilian. Black is taking some space on the queen side. And black hasn't castled yet. So he says, I know you're going to attack my king if I castle. I just won't castle yet. So maybe black's not going to castle. His idea being my king is safer in the center. And I don't need to run him to c8. Because then he'll just go attack me on the queen side. So, very interesting defense, way to defend this. See, white's ready to break f5 at some point, but black isn't cooperating and castling his king. Okay, now h4 is weak. So he gets rid of the... Thanks for moving. Bishop takes f5. He gets rid of that knight. Black gets the bishop pair. But, black's doing okay here. Where does this knight get active? He can't go to g4 or e4. If he tries to maneuver, he's got to get to e5. That's his... You moved. Trying to back this up. Okay. Okay, you don't have to move yet. Huh? Arg. Okay, let's see. Where were we? He took... Okay, I was thinking about getting the knight to e5, and that can be done with... Well, it's not that easy. You got to get the knight to f3, meaning you got to get to g1. That's going to take a while. Knight h3, move your king somewhere where it's safe, bring the knight back, and then knight to e5. So that was my intent. I was trying to show for a while, but they kept moving and taking away. So queen e5 directly is fine. It's a square white wants. Ooh, that's interesting. Let's go threaten mate. Wow. I missed that, and so did white. He's got to pitch a piece here. And now black decides to keep the queens on. Although queen takes e4, black's just going to be a piece up. Here he's trying to still attack. And that's where this little trick came in. Bishop a5. And see, black's lost his battery on the a8 h1 diagonal and didn't get the queens off. So black can now officially never castle, but black's a piece up. Okay, so but he could have had the queens off. So let's see if that comes back and bites him. Okay, so now we're going to look at let's see what happened here. Scotch game. I was saying this was pretty even. And this is the one where, I was talking about what about g5 there. It looks like white can get 2 pawns, but I don't know, black should be okay. Of course, I could totally be misevaluating it. Okay, queen e5 attacking the knight. Grabs the bishop, grabs the knight. Black has the bishop pair. Black should be fine here. Can you give up h6? Or is he going to trap the queen? Yeah, no, he's not. Nice resource. Okay, rook takes. Now, if the queen takes, you lose the protection of g5. So the bishop takes. So it looks like black misfired here. He didn't see this. Now white's bagged a pawn. But black has the 2 bishops for what it's worth. And white should be better here, but with the 2 bishops, black could hang on if he can do anything on the dark squares. Okay, so that's with Wu. Now let's see. Here's one that did end. Oh, look at that. Wow. How did this happen? I don't remember this game. Okay, let's find out. Scotch, Gambit. Oh, this is the one where uh, white grabbed the exchange on d8. Okay, so he took here first, came back, threatened. Now he went back. I guess there's a draw offer, and it was declined. Let's see. So now I guess he took on h2. Yeah, now this gets the black rook in the game. I didn't evaluate this out. I think I mentioned it, but this brings the black rook into play, and then g2 is going to fall. So check, and there goes g2, and here comes the white king. Going to lose the knight with check, and if anything, you can pick up the queen. You probably keep playing for mate. You know, no need to win the queen when you can hunt down a king. So he checked here. Probably what? Well, no, you can't play queen d3. You're going to drop this rook with check. Ugh. And if knight d2, you lose the other rook. White's just in a world of hurt here. Now he takes the queen and attacks the rook and threatens c2. And it's basically over. And here, white resigned because clearly after king h3 forced, well, you know, I wouldn't want to play white here. You're down a bunch of pawns and no development. Okay, so good game for the master, for the candidate master. We're going to shut this one down, and we're going to then we'll move into Titus's game. That's what I'm going to try to do. It's taking me back to the beginning. Okay, so one result in, a 1-0 score. And where's Titus? There he is. Okay. Wow. What's happening here? This is the Marshall, and it looks like White's defended it well. Okay. White's up his pawn, and pieces are coming off. So let's try to back it up. But they keep moving. Every time I scroll up, they move. Okay, so he took. We saw this position. He defended, and I was saying that it looks like White's holding his own here. He's got all his pieces over to the king's side to help out, and the black attack is just thanks for moving. Don't move. I'm trying to, but you don't know that. Black's still a pawn down, and his attack is dying. And they're liquidating stuff. Now, it doesn't mean White will win, but White gets all the fun here. So this one will go for a while. That was against Titus. Now here comes, I guess only one game is over, unless I'm missing some. No? Whoops, what's it doing? Why is it coming back here? Why is it giving me a no board? Let's see. Titus, did we look at Titus? Yeah, that's when we left off at. I guess when you try to scroll past the end, it takes you to the beginning, which is where I wanted to go. Now, naturally, when I try it, it won't do it. Okay, so let's go back to the beginning. Should be 9 games, although I thought I heard ticks twice. Here, White is disconnected, has 5 minutes to reconnect, so we've already determined White will win, or Black will win this one. Okay. This came out of Benoni. This bishop isn't all that great. Let's see. Not sure exactly where I looked at it last. I kicked that and got the used the outpost. I'm talking about this. Yeah, I was talking about this bishop not being so great. And it could be anybody's game still. Knight f5 with possible threats of knight takes g7. Pressure on d6 blocks that. Mate threat blocks that. And I don't know. I think Black's fine here. Let's see. Knight d7. Can White do anything with knight takes d6? Try to undermine this knight at some point. Well, we'll just call it a slight advantage for White until let's see what they come up with. But my gut feeling is Black's okay. Zigurst, what's happening? See, the video is now 54 minutes long, and he's still playing 9 games. I said it would go a little over 2 hours. just have to wait and see. Okay, Zighurst, White's used a lot of his time. This is out of that Caro-Kann. Okay, and White had gambited a couple pawns, and I think I was calling it about even. That's where we are. So White can get the bishop pair, but that gives Black a nice outpost for his knight, but that could double these critters, if not lose one. How does he plan to take back? With the rook? Then you might run into bishop f4. So it looks like knight takes, then knight takes, bishop takes. He can take on c4. I think Black should be okay here. White's got, it's still about even. It's still too early to tell. They got to play chess. Let's see. Salo, James Coleman. We looked at that. Now we're on Zighurst, so we move on to the next game. What's happening here? Looks like Black's getting pieces off, but he's going to be down a pawn still. Let's see. I remember seeing b4. That developed the white queen. And White's just up a pawn. Rook f2. And going to grind out an endgame win. That works. Okay, that was Loza. Now let's see. Incredible tactic. I think he was down a pawn, but he managed to create some bit of play. White's pawns on the king side are separated and weak. This is where he got that trick with it. Thanks for moving. They got that trick to advance his h pawn, and that separated the white pawns, but White's still doing fine. And I see knight g6, rook c7. I heard a tick, something ended. It's moving into another game. Don't quite understand why. What game was I looking at? Versus Incredible Tactic? I think it was versus Incredible Tactic. Yeah, let's bring it back. Rook c7, knight f4, good square for the knight, attacks a pawn. And White just ignores it. Maybe missed it. It looks like maybe Black's best chance is knight takes, but that puts the knight out of play. I'm not exactly sure how White wins this pawn yet. It'll take some time to do it. The white king's close to defend these h pawns. You almost have to try it, otherwise you're going to get squeezed. B4, a5, a6, a7. This pawn is ready to march. Okay, that's Incredible Tactic. And who's next? Guilon. White's down a piece here. Black managed to get the queens off. I was talking about how he could have had them off earlier. Let's back up and see some moves. Okay, Larry had to give up the piece to stop the mate. Didn't trade the queens, but he gets them off since we've been back. Queen comes down here. White just says, no, you're not going to bother my pawns. And Black is doing fine here. White's trying to set up some kind of a blockade, but Black should be able to crack through this. Let's see. He plays. Black will crack through this. C2 is weak. You tie White down to that and advance your pawns. Something will crack here. Should be interesting. Yeah, here. Wow, several moves passed. I guess I wasn't finished looking at them. Okay, let's see. Back it up slightly. White's trying to blockade it. Now, this is good. He wants to play B3 and deprive Black of any entry points. Hey, White's close to getting a blockade set up. Black should not have pushed that B pawn. He should have made a trade. Get some open lines for his rooks. Get some entry squares for his king. White may pull a draw out of this. How does Black improve his position? His bishop is not going to penetrate anywhere. The king is not going to penetrate. The black king is not going to penetrate anywhere. The white king cannot be evicted from e4. Let's see. White has 7 pawns. Black has 6. Sacrificing a bishop for a pawn only makes it equal. I think White's going to hold a draw down. I really do. I don't think black can win this. Amazing. Blockade, we call it. You set up a positional blockade where your opponent can't crack through. So good job for Coleman for seeing this. He's supposed to see this. Ganon Master means your FIDE rating has been over 2,200, but it hasn't been as high as 2,300. Now, in some cases, you can actually be 1,700 FIDE strength and get the CM title. It's kind of cheapened on the youth end. They give FIDE titles if you win certain sections. Generally, though, in the long run, it helps. It encourages these kids, and they come on and play more. But let's look at this. He just played F6. Now he's going to push by G6, and white just sits on the white squares, and it's a draw. See, there it is. The black king cannot penetrate anywhere. It can get to h6, but it can't go any farther. Black can get his bishop on the h6 to c1 diagonal, but white will just leave his king on e4 and shuffle his rooks around. And the moment black doubles up on the c file, white will just have his rooks laterally on, say, g2 and e2, and when he has his rooks on g2 and e2, black can't do a thing to progress, even though he has the bishop on the h6 c1 diagonal. So white has to shuffle around a lot. The bishop can take one or two squares away from the white rooks, but there'll always be one square that one can go to, and I think white's got a positional draw. So amazing, these are things you need to learn, because it's a shame to be a piece up and then suddenly find out that you have no way to win. I remember 32 years ago, I was playing somebody 1850 strength, and he was trying to set up a blockade like this, but he came up just short. I just had a way to break through. I think I'd won a piece, and he sacked a piece to try to get the blockade. And it would have been very brilliant on his part had it worked to recognize that he was losing, and yet he could make a sacrifice. So here I was, like, either a piece up or the exchange up. I don't remember, but I just had one way to crack through, and I found the one way, and I won the game. So like I say, I think this game is petering into draw. Black can't make any progress. Again, his king can't penetrate anywhere. The white king stays on e4. There's no way to drive it out. There's no way for black to move any pawns. They're all frozen. He blocked up a position just assuming it's a win, and now you're seeing this what white's doing here. It will take a gross blunder on white's part to lose this. I mean, I'll stake my reputation on it. Black cannot win this game without a white blunder. It's absolutely impossible to win this game. So eventually I think you'll see black start taking his time saying, what did I do? What did I do wrong? I was a piece ahead. How do I win this? I've got to be winning this. Now, could black try some strategy where he plants a rook on c3 and tries to make a sacrifice? I don't think that's enough, because then he's going to go into that ending a pawn down. I mean, an exchange down. And his other rook could come into c3 as well and be menacing pawns, but I think white will have resources. And then don't forget, white has a pawn on g6. It's a pass that black can't abandon. If he abandons it trying too hard to win on the other side of the board with his own sacrifice, that pawn on g6 is going to run, and it's going to be a new queen, and game over. White wins. So you don't want to lose a game when you're a piece up. That would be catastrophic. Anyway, I'm just kind of stretching my feet for a minute. Go back to the board and see what's happening. We'll flick over to the other boards. So let's see. He has doubled the rooks on the c file, and white's got his rooks on the second rank, just as I said. Black can take squares from white's rooks, but he can't take two squares. Uh, he, uh, there's three black squares that white can maneuver to. Black can only take two of them. For instance, if he puts the bishop on e3, white just shuffles rook from g2 to h2. And if he puts the bishop on f4, white will shuffle the rook from... maybe there's a new idea. Okay. Get the bishop to f4. You've got to keep the rook on the g file, because if you don't, if the rook goes to f2, bishop g3, and maybe black's going to win this pawn on h4, that could be a problem. So it's white to play. Rook from g to f2, bishop e3, rook g2. Black has king moves he can waste. And if white's king moves, there could come an e4 check. And maybe black has some tricks yet here. I'm more or less judging it on instinct. This is why chess is so fascinating, because suddenly, you snatch a draw from the jaws of defeat. But one thing, white has a lot of time on his clock. He's got 42 minutes, so he can work on his other games and come back and sort this one out. Because it'd be a shame to let the black bishop get to g3, forking a rook on f2 and the pawn on h4. And I don't think white can afford to allow black a pawn sack of an e4 check at any point in time. That's just going to open up lines, and the rooks are going to come in. I heard a tick. Somebody ended the game. Well, we'll come back to this one. I thought I've heard that telltale tick several times, and yet I've only found one game that actually ended. Okay, this is one. He lost a piece here. How did he lose a piece here? I don't remember. I thought this one was staying even. What did we miss here? Okay, let's get through this kind of quickly. Okay, he lost a pawn, and now queen h3. Now how does he lose a piece? There's another tick for game over. How does white lose a piece here? I thought he had everything covered. He's on the bishop. He's back on the queen. Okay, white's safe here. Knight goes to e5. Anchors the knight in. Black now has a pass pawn. Oh, he makes a sacrifice. Very interesting. And he missed he can interpose with the queen. He's thinking the bishop will interpose. Okay. But you got three connected pass pawns for the piece. But with two bishops, I like the bishops here. The pawns just aren't advanced enough. And black's going to have to play some chess here, some defense. But black can blockade those pawns with correct play. But you got to do it right, or here they come. And that's what he's trying to do. Now they're a little weak, but they're also getting stronger. So, maybe thanks for moving. Maybe white's okay here. So far, black hasn't demonstrated how to blockade these pawns, and the farther they advance, the stronger they're becoming. Well, here he's got them blockaded, except f5 is coming. Now the black rook has penetrated. Looks like maybe black's figuring it out. It's going to be an interesting endgame. Okay, let's move on to tightest. Wow, is this the martial attack game? I think it is. Yeah, it's the martial attack game. And I was saying, last I saw we were liquidating on e1. They managed to trade knights here shortly. And here they come. Black's down a pawn, but his bishop is better. Black's got his pawns on the opposite color of his bishop. That's good. They can't be attacked. There he puts one on a dark square. That could be a target later. Should white play g4 here? G4, and if there's a massive liquidation on g4, this pawn becomes under attack. It'll tie white down to it, or black down to it. Then you try to get this bishop into play to attack it. And create a couple pass pawns over here. He did play g4. Okay. So, I'm not sure. You got to activate that bishop, that dark squared bishop of black's, though. Maybe what he should have considered was trying to attack it from behind. Just a thought here. Bishop a5. You want to put the bishop here. You invite black to interpose his bishop and go into the king and pawn ending. So let's we'll come back and talk about that in a second. He played a move that I didn't mention. Okay, so instead of g4, bishop here. This tries to activate the bishop. Now black can put his bishop here, but then suddenly this bishop is getting into play. Now it's headed for e5, which is a good square. I heard a draw offer and I heard another game result, but I'm not seeing the results. I don't know what I'm hearing, unless... anyway. What's happening here? Wow. Black has a whole bunch of pawns. How did this happen? Okay, that's that Benoni. Mercy. Okay. Let's see, where were we? F5 was there was an exchange on F5. That's where I last remembered it. Black won. Well, at least they won't be making any more moves. Skakista Supremo has beaten title players in all the simuls. Who is this guy? Okay. White's not any better. White's not worse here. Well, he dropped that pawn. Was that an accident? Let's see. A5, just removing the defender theme on D5. Okay, so that's clearly a mistake on White's part. But the queen's getting active. White has the two bishops, although they're not doing much. This poor guy's kind of stuck. Not sure where he's going to get into play. There goes another pawn. That's how he's losing his pawns. He gets a few checks. White's getting in play. Grabs a pawn back. What's White down? One pawn? He's only down one pawn. Black still hasn't developed the rest of his queen side. Now he develops his queen with tempo. He takes it off. So White's going into an ending, late middle game, trying to get an ending with a favorable position. So rook e7 is a natural looking move, but knight c... Whoops, hit the wrong arrow. Knight here. White, that shuts off the e file, guards d6. Doesn't this just drop a pawn? Pawn takes. No, you're going to lose this guy. Okay, en passant, capture. Now d5. Knight goes to e5. Pawn takes. Now that the knight on d5 is covered, you can do this. A little trick, b7. Zwischenzug, hello, check. And that's how he got so many pawns up. And black wins. Be darned. And I didn't post my... some reason I didn't post my spam in here about joining the group. Oh well. Good game for black. Let's close the window. And that's two games over. Because this game ended. We talked about this already. Knight takes f3. White's only recourse is to take here. And loses queen. So clearly this is an old trap. Queen e2 was a serious blunder. You need to play h3 here. Okay, so we'll close this one down and bring on the next one. Okay, this one ended. Coleman won. Look at those passed pawns. They're running. Okay. Let's see. Trying to remember this one. There's another result in. Hey. So saying d6 is weak. Got the d5 outpost. The bishop was bad. And he had some threats. When he gets the knight to f5, there's some potential eventual threats of knight takes g7. I was thinking black was holding on here. I guess Coleman found a good move, and this is where he left off. Probably that's not wise. The knight doesn't really have a good place to go, but there could be a problem with d7. Now you have to play this to save your piece. Here comes an en passant. Okay, well, playing all over c4. There might be a sack on d6 here. Might. Knight takes, queen takes, c5, but then that just makes the pawns weak. He played c5 directly. Now he took here, and oh yeah, here's the point. He gets this piece, and that's a pin. And here come the pawns, and there's not much black can do about this. Knight a7. Does black have to resign here? How about knight a7? Okay. Well, you can play this rook here and threaten rook e7. It's not a very fun game for black to try to defend. Black's all tied up. Rook e7 is coming. And if rook e8, you just take, and play c6. And yeah, white's winning. Although, I don't think there's enough. You get a couple of spite checks, but the king is safe. Come back and threaten it, and I think black's out of checks. Okay, so well played by James, and let's close this Korpin. Let's close that one down. Okay, so how many games are now left? Looks like 1, 2, 3. No, he's more. Let's get some of these games that are over with done. We'll come back to the other ones. Okay. Loza, where's this at? Let's see. He got the queens off, and he's just trading rooks. And why did black lose? Why did black give up here? Did he resign? Let's see. I'm like reading the game chat. You can't see it on the screen. He won on. Oh no, Loza won on time. Oh, I'm thinking white won. It's just an accident. Okay, he's got a winning position, but he lost on time. Yeah, I'm thinking that white won, but unfortunately, he makes comment. I didn't see the time on this one. It happens to me. First time I played like 22 boards and lost 17 of them on time. It's in my history. Go look if you want to see. Yeah, it was terrible. Okay, so way to hang in there, Loza. You win games when you don't take your time, and here you did. You see, essentially you played 22 moves. You gained a minute and a half on the clock. So you gained 5.5 minutes on the increment. No, you gained 11 minutes on the increment. So you played this game in 10 minutes. I'm talking about playing a minute and a half a move. You played 30 seconds a move. That's not going to get it done in a real situation. You won the game on time, but you didn't really win you weren't winning the game on the board. You got to take your time. That's why I make these videos, to try to help teach you guys to take your time. Okay, so that game's over. And then incredible tactic, white won. Oh, wow. Yeah, so I was talking about that a-pawn running. Let's see what else, when he played b4. I think it was b4. Or a4. And he does take the pawn, like I said. He pretty much has to take it. But here comes these pawns, and they're just threatening to run. And there they go. Now he's cut the knight off, and the pawn just goes, and he can't stop it. And yeah, game over. So well played by James, and looks like this game did end in a draw. I want to come back and look at this and see. I want to save this one for last. This one ended black won here. Yeah, he just dropped. He Black has found a way to get to crack him open. He's got that pass pawn, and he uses it. And Black did blockade the pawns. White got a little action, but the pawns ran out of gas. And here comes that D pawn, and it's essentially unstoppable. Okay, so I guess he missed something on when he sacked on G6. He didn't have to lose this, but hey, it's fun to play these games to see what happens. Fun and exciting for you. Now there's... Oh, did I close the wrong one out? Dang it. Why did it close the wrong one out? Okay, I just wiped somebody's game out. I wiped out the game that ended in a draw. Okay, well, they agreed to a draw. The only possibility would be... ouch. Just banged my leg. The only possibility would be if... I was kind of explaining it. If Black can take squares away from the rook, if White blunders and force... but I think White can hold that. As long White can keep the king on e4 and Black can't do anything. Now we're running out of games. We're down to one game, so let's close this one out versus Wu. We looked at that. And Zigwurst, he won. Oh, wow. What's happening here? Don't quite remember this one. Let's see. Go back a little bit more. Oh, this is the Carol Khan game. Okay. I remember when the knight went to e5. That's the last place I remember seeing it. Or the bishop went to e5. So he takes with the queen. I think he could have taken with the knight because he's on the bishop on c4. So that might be a mistake. But White doesn't try to do anything. Let's see. He's got an f5 square for his rook. And he uses it and doubles his rooks. See, Black's problem is he's not getting untangled over here. So this gambit is working out quite well for White. Hey, look at that. Make exciting chess. Bishop takes. And we're going to take advantage of a pin and break you all up. Now the threat is rook takes or bishop takes f6. And that's what happens. And there's going to be a nasty pin here. We could take the rook with check, but Black gets... take the knight with check, but Black gets some wood here. So e5. And... it's going to activate another piece. Now knight e4. Does that hang the knight on e4? No, you have... Oh, that's interesting. Wow. Knight e4. Well, queen takes e4, rook takes check is deadly. Master's playing very well. Okay, let's see. Took this guy, and here comes a check. There comes another check. And here comes winning the queen. Black resigns here. Where are you going to put the king? Here? No. Here? You're going to lose that queen with check no matter how you slice it. I can take this. Now let's see. I'm not saying this is forced. White enjoys a queen and a pawn for a rook and a knight. Yeah, that's a win. Okay, we have one game to cover. And I'm sorry I closed down the other one I wanted to look at, but I think it is a draw. And the players agreed to it. So that leaves the game with tightest, and we can focus our attention on this game. We'll look at the position here. I didn't get much to comment. Something similar to what I thought is taking place here. I mentioned something about White getting two pawns going on the queen side, and that's what's going to happen. But instead of opting for just one pawn against 0 on the king side, Black opts for two pawns against 1, and still has his passed pawn to keep Black's attention. And now this pawn is weak on c5. And, this is interesting. If you trade bishops, it becomes a draw, because White can't crack through because of this protected passed pawn. So very resourceful. So he comes here. Now he's pressuring. He guards it. Now e5. Now what's happening? Check. Let's see. This is the current position we're at. This is the final game. There we go. Now, to win with White, you need to use your king. One bit of compensation for black, he does have a very dangerous passed pawn. But for the moment, the black king is tied down to guarding g5. My gut instinct says that white should win this, but I don't think it's easy. And I want to even think that the game is a draw. So you have the experience of the master going against. Well, I don't know. Titus strength, his standard rating is 1760. That's higher than my standard rating. I don't care about rating points. I just play simul's and lose my rating points. I think the highest I got it up to was my standard rating was 1976, and I played the aforementioned 22 games in a simul and lost about 17 on time, and my rating went under 1400. Oh, okay, there's that again. Can't take. So maybe they're going to head for a draw here. Just call it a day. White doesn't have to take a draw. If white just wants to be happy with the draw, he can take it. But white can try for a win here. But if he pushes c5, his pawns can become targets, and they get put on black squares. But c5. Do you have time for king e5? King e5. If bishop takes g5, king takes d5. And you're threatening the pawn on c5. Suddenly white has a couple passed pawns that are split. White can try for a win here. I'd have to open up my bishop endings with Averbach. That'll tell me what's happening here. See, I can cheat. I can fudge. I can pull up bishop endings to enhance this commentary. Let me turn a light on here. I don't have any lights on. Yeah, you see, he played c5. Hey, how about that? See, white can try for a win, and he does. And so, you didn't play king e5. He's basic. Now, white should play c6. That's what my gut says. Because c6 keeps black from going to white squares. I'm thinking white's winning this. King e5 might have been the move. I would have taken my time, but who am I to say? So let's see. I got bishop endings. Let's see. Let me talk while I'm finding the endgame. I call it the Averbach series. There's 8 volumes, written or co-authored by Yuri Averbach, Russian grandmaster of the Bobby Fischer era. And what the Soviets tried to do was they wanted to create in book form, just before computers came along, and table bases. They wanted to provide every conceivable type of simple ending. Piece versus piece, or in some cases, piece versus pawns. And they have 8 volumes in the set. They're in English descriptive notation. They were reprinted by Pergamon in the 80s, combining 2 volumes. I don't know if they're available. Of course, the Russian editions are out there in Russian language and in Russian algebraic. The 8 volumes. There's pawn endings, rook endings, bishop endings, bishop versus knight endings, knight endings, queen endings, queen versus rook or minor piece endings, and rook versus minor piece endings. And they cover just about every conceivable positional advantage, where you have equal material, where you have a positional advantage, say a better minor piece, a pawn up, a pass pawn, all kinds. It's just fascinating what they've done. Now, you won't exactly find your position that you're looking for, but you'll find general rules. And they all usually simplify down to. So we're going to consider looking at a position where it's like bishop and 2 pawns versus bishop and pawn. And what 2 pawns would they be? Well, we're going to say we're going to not discuss the g pawns here. So let's see if bishop and pawn versus 2 pawns shows up anywhere in Averbach. Here's a position where black. Oh, that's a bishop. Oh no, this is not the right ending. This is bishop. The other side doesn't have a bishop. See, I said in some cases they're bishop and bishop versus pawns. Okay, here's chapter 12, bishop and 2 pawns versus bishop and pawn. Let's see what Averbach has to say. Let's read some general rules here. The side holding the pawn advantage usually wins if he, 1, queens a pawn or at least exchanges 1 pawn for the enemy bishop, obtaining a winning endgame a piece ahead, captures the enemy pawn, maintaining a winning 2-pawn advantage. In this case, the pawn to capture is the h4 pawn. That's not going to happen here. 3 exchanges a pair of pawns, leading to a 1 bishop and pawn versus bishop ending. Not necessarily going to exchange the pawn there. Exchanges bishops, reducing to a 1 pawn ending. Well, we already determined this game would be a draw if the bishops came off. Of course, only the main instances will be treated here. The pawn configuration, being a characteristic positional trait, will serve as the basis for our analysis. The chapter shall incorporate the following situations. 1. Connected passed pawns. 2. Connected pawns, 1 passed. 3. Connected pawns, none passed. 4. Isolated pawns. Isolated passed pawns. 5. Isolated pawns, 1 passed. Isolated pawns, none passed. So we have connected passed pawns. The first diagram they give has white with an A and a B pawn, black with an H pawn. And it's a win for white. But the white king in that position, it's a game from Santa Cyr Fine, New York 1938. White is clearly winning. And for the most part, the pawns are winning. But white is tied down to h3 in some respect. I found a position with colors reversed that matches this position, at least on the king side with the pawns. Now the black king in this position on the board needs to run over and capture c6 and d7. Give up the 2 pawns on g5 and h4, and I think he can hold a draw. But first he shoves that pawn. He's not ready to give it up yet. Now white has to watch that pawn. I'm thinking if white had a win, I wasn't sure how to do it, and if what I'm seeing in the books, I'm not quite seeing this type of position come up. The end games with many pawns usually has like 5 pawns versus 4. It's not necessarily in here. H3 is a great move. Now here's an idea. Well, white can't move his king forward. That pawn's going to run. I'm thinking if white gets his bishop to g1, the point is that it stops the king. Well, it doesn't stop the king from crossing over to attack c6 as long as he doesn't go through d6. I'm just looking at a bishop exchange. Bishop h2 check, king takes c6, bishop takes c2, king takes c2. That should end up a draw. So 55 moves in. Both sides have plenty of time if they need it to sort it out. Looks like white is taking his time, which is good. The simul is now 1 hour and 33 minutes old. Comments are saying they think it's dead drawn. I'll type something in there. Anyway, white has the fun, but I think it's a draw. Now he's going to win the pawn on g5, but black wins the two pawns. So black's going to win the pawn on g5 and h3. White's going to win the pawns on g5 and h3. Black's going to win the pawns on c6 and d7, and black's king will come back and secure the control of the queening square, and eventually the black bishop will sack. Well, here he's going to keep the g5 pawn. There are several ways to go. Actually, see king c6, king takes bishop takes g5. he can promote a pawn to a queen. Yeah, I had to go this way. Duh, what am I thinking? Let's see. If king c6, bishop takes, king takes c6, you make a queen. So he's done the right thing. Well, anyway, it's an interesting game. So the question is, we're at move 57. How long will this go? If I think it's usually, I'm kind of in the opinion, if I think it's actually a draw and my opponent is playing well and unless there's a trick he could fall into, I'll usually, I would just say draw here because I don't see how white makes progress. Black is now threatening to play king d5. King e4 is not playable because of h2 and that pawn queens. So once white loses his advanced queenside pawns, the game is over. I don't see how white can keep black out. Someone's commenting about bishop takes g5, but the black will be fine against that. The bishop will just drop back to d8, and black's king will collect the queenside pawns, and game over. So the question is, when are we going to hear the little jingle of a draw offer? Kind of sounds like a coin dropping or a chain clank. Not chain clanking. Chains are kind of have a deep sound, deep resonation. More like a little chink chink. But overall, it's been really good play by the candidate master. He's doing a great job. Now, here's an interesting thing. We'll close the video off. Candidate master versus national master. What's the difference? What's the stronger? Well, depends. Candidate master is a FIDE title. To get it, you have to have your rating over 2200, as I mentioned earlier, win some kind of a junior title. But it's possible to be 2299 and almost a FIDE master, but you're still a candidate master. I think in Dan Heisman's case, that's what his FIDE rating got to, 2299. He never could get that other point to put him over. So he uses the national master title, although he has both. Would your impression of him be any different if he had an FM after his name? Yeah, it probably would. There's a lot of credit given to people with a higher title. Now, which is stronger, candidate master or national master? Well, it's arguable. Here's Dan with who got a FIDE up to 2299 and uses the national master title. Candidate master only has to have a FIDE at 2200. So here the national master is higher. Now you take the reverse. In the U.S., you can, if you achieve a national master, you get a national master certificate if you hit 2200. You only have to do it once and never again. I have a friend that's been playing tournament chess for like 50 years, and 30 years into his career, he finally broke 2200, and I heard him say that he broke 2200 3 times, but every time he broke it, he immediately went back down. And now he's approaching 70, his playing closer to 2000 strength chess. So, but he's got the national master certificate, and he's playing with an expert rating in most tournaments he goes to. Oh, looks like somebody moved while he's taking a walk. So let me go back there. So here's a case where the candidate master is stronger than the national master. Dan Heisman's 2299 beats a national master that just got there 3 times, and then at the same time, a national master can beat the candidate master. Okay, so it looks like the pawn on c6 is finally going to fall, and they should be agreeing to a draw shortly. Let me see the moves I missed. Bishop d8. He played bishop c5. He came back, threatened to hold on to the pawn. Backed up the bishop, just flip-flop. Now he attacks the pawn, and the c6 and d7 pawns fall. The h3 pawn falls. and both sides have one pawn, and it's a draw. It's definitely a dead draw now. Just waiting for them to make the offer. So sometimes the candidate master is stronger, sometimes it isn't. Uh, Dan Heisman makes the interesting case because he has both CM at a 22.99. So in this case, you can argue a CM is stronger than an NM. But at the same time, you can argue that an NM is stronger based on the fact that he got his FIDE up to 22.99. So my highest FIDE was 22.30. It's currently under 2200, a little bit, and I don't care about that. I'm trying to get the Canada Master title just to have it. I've not been successful with the United States Chess Federation. Every time I called them, I kept telling, oh, you got to talk to this person. You got to talk to this person. Then you'd leave messages, well, that person's been out on medical leave. Maybe be back in 3 months. And then naturally when they come back, if they ever did, nobody called me back. So I also have an interesting case. The old they have Life Master title with United States Chess Federation. They have two titles. You can get it on a norm base, or you can get it what they call the original Life Master title. The original Life Master title means you played and completed 300 games where you started and ended the tournament at or above 2200. So, like, say for instance, your rating was 2205, and you went and played in a 9-round Swiss, and your rating, like the U.S. Open, you lose rating points, go down to 2194. Well, none of those nine games count. And now your next tournament, say you go back over 2200. Well, however many tournaments that is, none of those count because you have to start and finish over 2200. Well, I had my total. You need 300. I had my total up around. Here, they're making some moves again as I'm walking, and I'm hearing the pieces capture. When are they going to call it the draw? They will soon. Black just puts his king on g8, and game's over. Or g6. I won't let him go to g6. So anyway, I had about 295 games. I don't remember exactly. I was inactive from chess from 1996 until 2000, end of 2012. Basically, tournament chess. There comes the draw offer. Okay, they've agreed to the draw. We know what happened here. Well played by both, and I'll finish my discussion about what I was just into, the Life Master thing. But they used to keep track, and I had manually, and I had about 295 games. It might have been 293, it might have been 296. But I wasn't in a situation to play any tournaments because of my lifestyle. I was living in paradise at the beach, but I was working 2 jobs to make sure I could afford to stay there, and I didn't have weekends. So I played a lot of my ICCF correspondence chess I was into. And then later when the internet came along, I got into that. But anyway, to make a long story short, at some point they lost their records, and now they only have the records that are on the database that show I have about 60 games towards a Life Master title. And I was trying to get somebody to look that up, and they couldn't figure it out. Well, the thing is, had I played one more tournament, I used to have a floor of 2200, and I couldn't go below it because at one time my rating at USCF rating had been over 2300. And they've since changed the floor, so I can go as low as 2,000 now. So if I ever get my rating back over 2,200, the only question is, will they recognize that I only need those approximately 5 games to get the Life Master title? I don't care about a rating. I just play. But it's kind of weird. It's just that and unfortunate that they can't get their act together. And when I ask and explain, this is what I have, can you find out? Oh, they don't even return a call. Anyway, end of my rant on that. So, thanks everyone that played. The video is an hour and 45 minutes. That's not too bad. And White's making a comment. I blew it, got too overexcited. Well, analysis after will show I couldn't solve it here, but you played well. You covered the Marshall. You didn't get in trouble like a lot of people do. And James is available for chess lessons. He has a coaching page. Check it out. And hope to see you all playing more of these title players. I'm not going to stop looking for them. There's a lot of them, and I'm going to keep finding them because we have the best coaching group on chess.com. Us and Dan Heisman Learning Center. No other group compares to us because we're free. The other big ones aren't. And you know, we're active. They're not. Okay? It's that simple. Thanks so much for your time. Take care.